Hi, welcome to week 7 of Drawing with All the Senses, and this week we're going to continue with our look at perspective drawing. So far we've been looking at one-point perspective, and that's where we have an eye line or a camera line, and this is roughly where my eye is. I've lined up this camera with my eye level, and so there's this imaginary line that goes in 360 degrees around my head. It looks just like a flat line on a piece of paper because we're just seeing a small piece of that, and we put on that point something called a vanishing point, and we will see that the lines of a straight-on object sort of vanish into that, and it would be somewhere behind my head. We'll try to see that with this old box here, right? So if I'm looking at the flat side of an object, okay, you're probably seeing the flat side, and you're probably seeing these look like they're pointed sort of upwards towards the top of the frame, and they will converge into a point somewhere probably behind my head, right? And in one-point perspective, as we've discussed, we have the flat side of an object, and we only have three kinds of lines. We have lines that are parallel to that eye line, sometimes called the horizon line. We have lines that are perpendicular at a 90-degree angle to that horizon line or camera line or eye line. And then we have the orthogonals, which are lines that are used to construct the object, and they converge into this vanishing point back here. And we've been working on that. Two-point perspective addresses another type of problem, and it's fairly simple once you have one-point perspective down, because we still have the same eye level, meaning that's where we put our eye line, but here we're going to use not one vanishing point but two vanishing points, and here's why. One-point perspective, we're looking at the flat side of an object. In two-point perspective, we're looking at a corner generally of some kind. So here we're not looking head-on. But if you notice these lines, the orthogonals, some of them vanish over here, and over here, some of them vanish over here. So we need two vanishing points, one on this side of the screen, one on this side of the screen. Sometimes they're off the sheet of paper as well, which makes it a little more confusing, but I'll try to show you in some demonstrations how to make it a little less confusing if I can. So, two-point perspective looks at the corner side of an object, or anywhere in between a flat side, and because all of these orthogonals do not converge into one point, we need another point to determine the convergence of these sets of lines. And once we do a few exercises, you'll see it's fairly straightforward. Alright, I'll see you on the other side. Okay, in two-point perspective, we have our picture plane the same as we do in any other perspective mechanism, and we're going to drop in that eye line. Right? That's the eye of the viewer, or of the camera, or what have you. And remember, in one-point perspective, we had one vanishing point, and we're looking at the flat side of an object. In two-point perspective, we are going to look at the corner of an object. So, for example, if I draw that corner in here, and I give it one vanishing point over here, and if I vanish this side into that, you can see, and I do another, the end of that box perhaps, another just perpendicular line. Great, we can see we've got one side, but how does this other one vanish? Well, one of the tricky things about two-point perspective is that we have to realize that sometimes that vanishing point is off the page. So I'm just going to drop a vanishing point way over here out of the picture plane, and we're going to vanish these orthogonals into that. And now you can begin to maybe see, if I drop in another perpendicular line, and then this top corner will go right into that other vanishing point, And I'll try to make it as smooth as I can. But I missed a little bit, oh well. And then, of course, we have this one will go into this one. And so now we've got these two vanishing points, and I'll just draw that out so you can see, you know, how that vanishes. And there's our box, right? We can light it any way we want. And so we've got the corner side of an object, two vanishing points. And again, just like in the one-point perspective situation, it'll work for anywhere in this picture plane. I'll draw the corner. I'm just going to move kind of quickly here. I'll drop in my orthogonals. Alright, I'll get these ones going in here. Not the most perfectly straight one, but you get the idea. You guys are pros. I'll drop in the other ends. Gets a little confusing with all those lines, so take it slowly. Whoops, see, I even missed. But again, my excuse is I'm drawing around the camera, so you'll forgive me, I hope. Okay, but there's the idea, right? You're seeing the underside, just like in one-point perspective here. And this one appears to float a little bit. And of course, you know, if you erase this paper, it doesn't erase so great, but you know, these are just construction lines, really. And that'll help us to just develop the construction for the two-point perspective. And with stuff, you know, right on the horizon line or eye line, just like in one-point perspective, same idea. Okay, find wherever you want the depth to be on that, wherever you want on either of those. And this one we're not seeing the top or the bottom, so that should just be fine. Alright, so the construction lines can get kind of messy and in the way, but once you get it down, and most of you got one-point perspective down very well, so this is just a new take on it, right? Where we have the two vanishing points. We're looking at the corner. If it was one-point perspective, again, you know, we'd just be looking at the straight side of it. I'm just going to rough in a straight side here and vanish into one, right? That's because we're looking at the straight side. We just have parallel and perpendicular lines. But in two-point, we actually have another situation because we're looking at the corner. These lines have to vanish into one vanishing point, and these lines into another. Alright, hopefully that's kind of clear. Give it a shot yourself, okay? Cool. Alright, so hopefully that was sort of clear. Again, it's just a matter of finding out the eye line and then putting those vanishing points on that eye line. Some of you in the one point were putting your vanishing points off that eye line. The vanishing points, as far as we're concerned for right now, are always on that eye line. So they're always going to be right here. One over here, maybe one over here. If you put those vanishing points too close together, things will begin to look really distorted and weird, and that's something that students often do. So make sure that that you're not afraid to put that second vanishing point off your picture plane. So remember, one point is the flat side of an object. Everything vanishes somewhere up here. 2 point, we're looking at the corner as the primary point of focus, and then we have to have two vanishing points in order to get those construction lines. Also, drawing boxes is going to be boring pretty quickly if it isn't already. So just be patient. Once we can construct these very simple cubes and basic shapes, then we can show you how to build more complex objects, circles, squares, rounded off stuff, foreshortening. A whole bunch of other techniques are based off this idea. So practice these and get them down, because then everything that comes after is going to really scaffold upon that knowledge very nicely. Alright, so for next time, I want you to do exactly what you did with the one-point perspective. I want you to make 5 picture planes with a eye line in one of them at the top, towards the top of the picture plane, one towards the middle, one towards the bottom, and one diagonal. Diagonal one threw some of you off, but you remember, when I say parallel and perpendicular, it's not to the picture plane edge, it's parallel and perpendicular to that eye line, okay, that what's often called in tutorials, if you're looking at them, the horizon line. And so just make sure that you pay attention to that one. And then for your fifth one, this time I want you to make a house. Some of you made some nice houses. Make a house in 2-point perspective. A lot more tricky, but just settle it down. Think of it as a box, a basic shape first. Build your construction lines, and things will be a lot easier. It might help you sometimes if you're having trouble with the lines and seeing things to use a very hard pencil like an H or something, or even a light blue pencil to rough in the construction lines, and then on the part that's actually the main thing you're drawing, the house itself, use a softer pencil like a 2B, 4B, or 6B. And that way your eye doesn't get sort of confused by all these different lines going everywhere. I've found that to be helpful sometimes too. All right, have fun with it, be patient with yourselves, and we'll see you next time. All right, thanks.